Today on Toy Habits, we are taking a look at the G.I. Joe Ranger known as Stalker and comparing him to his vintage self from 1982. And before we get into the review, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can be alerted to the latest reviews, news, and episodes when they drop. Hey everyone, welcome back to Toy Habits, and today we are taking a detailed look at the G.I. Joe Retro Collection Stalker and comparing him to his vintage straight arm release from 1982. Man, that was a long time ago, so let's get right to it. And let's get down to business like we usually do and look at Stalker's packaging. And Stalker comes in the G.I. Joe Retro Collection vintage style packaging with the very long blister, but that is okay because he has lots of accessories to fill up that long blister. And zeroing in on the card art, you can see that this retro collection style packaging is the same card art as they used in 1982. It even has that really faded look to it, which is a really nice touch. And on the back of the card, you will find the cross-sell figures that you can find if you can find them out in the wild. And you can see his file card here, which is a very abridged version of his file card because it is also translated into 4 other languages. So there's not a ton of information here, but at least you get to see the cool art that is translated from the front of the package to the back. And now that Stalker is out of his plastic jail cell, we can see that it is a brand new sculpt that they have for Stalker for the G.I. Joe Retro Collection. So let's take a look at all of the details here. And first, starting off with Stalker's head sculpt, you can see that he has a very stern look on his face, and the facial features and definition that they've given on his face really add to this. So his cheekbones and cheek flesh are just protruding, kind of making it look like he is pursing his mouth or is very disappointed. His chin is very pronounced here, and I do love that definition. You can also see the cheekbone detail and the flesh just coming off of the side of his face like he is gritting his teeth. He has a very defined Cupid's bow where his pencil-thin mustache is drawn, and I love the pencil-thin mustache. I'm not a fan of the super bushy mustaches that they've had on previous G.I. Joe figures. You can also see that one eyebrow is raised over his right eye, which just adds to the whole effect. And taking a look at his beret, you can see that it looks very natural. It has a nice fold to the side of it. It's a very nice green color. And if we turn it around, you can see the texturing that they've given on his hair. So great head sculpt all around for this updated figure so far. And moving down to Stalker's torso, you can see that he has a very nice holster type chest piece that he has. It's more like a vest holster, if you will. And there is some nice grenade detail that they've sculpted on here, as well as the pouches, and there is a spot for his knife. So similar to the Cobra Trooper, there is a spot for his knife, and they didn't reuse that part from the Cobra Trooper, which is really nice. So it looks like he's been given a brand new vest piece to hold his gun, and you can see the strap detail on the back, and it has more of like a leathery texture to it. And if you move around to the side, it looks like he has a cantina that is sculpted on the side. So it's very nice touches to these figures. And I wanted to zoom in really closely on his holster, and his holster has a lot of stitching detail on it. So it's a really, really nice piece for being really tiny. So the attention to detail on these figures is pretty good given the size. And one other aspect that I love about these vests and chest pieces is that they are removable, so you can manipulate them or take them off if you can. And looking at the texturing detail on Stalker's shirt there, I do love that. And you can see the folds that they've included in the abdomen here just to make it look like natural clothing. And I just love the way that this is textured all around, and it just gives Stalker a very unique look and a lot of definition to his shirt. And zeroing in on Stalker's arms, his hands are very realistic. You can kind of make out the nail detail here, and his shirt rests nicely on his arm. You can see the cuff detail here, as well as the texturing that's on the front of his shirt and the back of his shirt. And he also has a molded on pouch on his bicep, and his other arm is exactly the same. And moving down to Stalker's legs and his knees, you can see that he's been given some nice pockets on the sides of his legs here, and they do look very realistic. And I do love the camo design that is frankly all over the figure, but I'm just choosing to talk about it on his legs. But I wish that they would have continued this camo design over his knee pads, because they just look like they were just kind of sculpted on and threw on without any regard to the continuity of the paint app itself. I do like the way that the pants fold into the boots, because they look like real clothing. And if we zero in on the boots, they are given a very nice detail here. You can see the laces on the shins as well as the laces on the feet there. And they do have some nice tread detail to them. And Stalker comes with several accessories, so let's first take a look at his knife. And this is a reused part from other Joes in the line and other Cobra soldiers, but this is a standard issue drop point knife with a serrated edge here. So if we can get a closer look at the detail, you can see the handle is textured as well as some really defining lines on this blade. He has also been packed with a standard 9mm handgun, which again is a reuse from other figures, but you can see the texturing detail that they have on the handle as well as the barrel of the gun. And it's a really, really nice piece that's supposed to sit in his holster. And next up, let's take a look at his larger weapons. And this looks like a PP91 KEDR selective fire 9mm submachine gun that was developed by the Soviet Union, and it has some cool detail on the handle here. And when I was looking at this in the package, I did think the stock was movable, but no, it's a fixed stock that you can't put in different positions. The barrel of the gun looks great, and the receiver on the top has very nice detail to it. So it's overall cool, because Stalker is coming packed with a lot more weapons than he did when he came out in 1982. And finally, taking a look at Stalker's vintage-inspired MP32 pulverizer, we can see that his magazine has a very detailed look to it. The barrel of the gun looks really, really nice, and you can see all of the intricate parts on here, and has a really cool stock on the end. And I guess this is made to fold around the arm and rest in the grooves of your arm. So it's very cool, it's very vintage inspired, and it looks pretty much like the vintage weapon that we will see in a minute. And here is Stalker all geared up with machine guns in hands, and he looks fantastic. You can also see that his 9mm pistol rests really nicely in the holster, and you can see that he has his knife on his chest there. So he looks pretty cool, and I'm really happy that we were able to get all of the accessories on him and we don't have any orphan accessories. And on to my favorite part of these reviews, the vintage figure comparison with the updated G.I. Joe Retro Collection figure. And you can see that the head sculpt for Stalker in the Retro Collection has been given more of an older look and a much more defined face. I thought the original Stalker was just a little bit doughy looking, and he didn't have a very great look to his face there. You can also see that the vintage Stalker has a very bushy mustache, and I do love the updated, more pencil-thin mustache that they have on the Retro Collection Stalker. You can also see that the berets are the same color, which is a nice nod to the vintage figure. And if we move down to this vest piece, you can see that the grenade that is on the chest of Stalker in the vintage figure, you can also see that that is carried over here to the vest piece here. You can also see that the knife that is also sculpted on the chest is represented here as well. And onto some of the minor details, you can actually see that the cuff detail that is on the vintage figure is also present on the Retro Collection figure as well. And if you look at the pouches on the sides of the figures here, you can also see that these pockets have carried over as well. So all in all, I think this is probably one of the best vintage figure translations that I've seen in a while. The updated sculpt for Stalker in the Retro Collection is very welcome, and it just gives him a more updated and more sergeant looking look. This updated sculpt for the G.I. Joe Retro Collection Stalker is one of the best to date. These figures are looking more realistic as the years go by while still retaining that vintage feel. I love that he comes packed with an assortment of weapons that add to the displayability and playability of this figure. Let us know your thoughts on this figure in the comments below, and thanks for tuning into Toy Habits.